Hi, everyone. I think we'll get started. We're a small group, but I think you'll get some good information from the session this evening. I'm going to start just a couple things. We are recording it for all the other 3 classes that chose not to show up. We're recording it. And you can use your button. They're automatic. Like, I don't have to press it here to sort of activate your question. Hold it in. If you want to release it, you just have to hold it down a little bit longer. Which should make it easier. I don't see anyone at the other sites, but they may come on in a short time. So what I asked the residents that are here this evening to do is to do a brief intro to themselves, what their program is, I guess sort of how they got there, and to give you some tips and hints as to getting ready for residency interviews. And then we'll just open it to the floor, and you can ask questions of them. Okay?
So I've worked with some of you. My name is JP. I'm in the second year of my radiology residency, trained at Memorial, and really the best advice I can give you as far as interviews is the same that you're going to get with, if you interviewed for a part-time job at Sobeys. They're looking for the same type of qualifications. Are you willing to work hard? Are you personable? And are they, I think all of you have proved yourself to be competent and academically capable at this point in your careers. After that, it's just a matter of being able to find a group of whatever residency you choose and find a group that you're able to get along with and that clicks with your personality.
Cool. My name's Allison. I'm one of the internal medicine residents. I'm second year, so I went to Dal. I interviewed at, I can't remember, I think it was like 8 places. I prepared probably for interviews by going on the CFMS that's called, right? Yeah. Website, and kind of looking at all the areas for the schools that I was applying to, and then kind of briefly, if I had never been to those schools, like looked at their websites and kind of any tips on Google that I could find, just to kind of get thinking about what types of things they might ask. But it's not like I had rehearsed answers, but just to kind of think about, how you would approach questions or certain qualities in yourself that you may not be able to think of on the spot, stuff like that. So that I had kind of brainstormed ideas and thoughts. Yeah, and then obviously knowing your resume, sometimes there's stuff that you might have done like 5 years ago if you did a little research project. Just might be good to refresh your memory in case you forgot, because I did a project in like first year, and then they actually sometimes they pull up your resume and they just say, tell me about this. So, you should be able to do that.
Good. My name is V. I'm one of the Gen Surge R4s. I'm from BC. I did my med school out there. I interviewed for both general surgery and internal medicine at, 6 places? I know, eh?
Each or
No,
total?
I did total.
Awesome.
Total, I think 2 and 4. I can't remember it. Anyways, things I did to prepare. I did go over a few, just the standard, stock questions that everyone's going to ask with a few of my friends, just to make sure that we had not a rehearsed answer per se, but at least it flowed and it wasn't all stumbled. And know your resume and make sure you can answer anything that came about it. They're going to say, oh, so I see you traveled here. Tell me about something interesting about this. And they're going to kind of go off topic, and just got to be able to talk about it with some degree of interest and passion. It really speaks to them, I think.
I'm Kyle. I'm one of the R1s in obstetrics and gynecology. I trained in Saskatchewan, and I had 13 interviews last year, so it was a pretty busy CaRMs tour for me. 2 things, I guess, about CaRMs. We've kind of talked about like running through practice questions. I would say it's pretty useful, especially for the common questions that like you just know they're going to ask. Like every interview, they're going to ask, why this city, why this program, strengths, weaknesses, those kind of questions. And those are all things that you think about all the time, but you never really get a chance to articulate them. And it's really different saying them out loud than just saying them in your head. So I always suggest like saying them out loud to other people, or friends, family, people like that. My other piece of advice, which I didn't really start doing until like kind of halfway through my interviews, but I found it really helpful, was thinking about like a list of everything that I wanted a program to know about me. And I kind of wrote them down on a sheet of paper, and I had them in my mind. And some of them come up kind of through interview questions, but at the end of every interview, I found people were saying like, is there anything else you want to tell us about yourself? And that gave me a chance to look at my list and say like, oh yeah, I didn't talk about this cool thing that I think you really need to know. And then I would bring it up then. And I thought that was useful for me.
My name's Rachel. I'm a first-year family resident out of Dal, and I went to Dal as well. I applied to family in peds at Dal, but I really had kind of switched from peds to family when I was on mat leave after third year. So applying to family, I find what's important is family medicine programs, while oftentimes are people's backups, which is not unreasonable, family programs don't want family doctors who have that as their backup. That doesn't mean they don't take people who have family as their backup, but they want somebody who wants to be a family doctor, who cares. So I feel like if you can go through your application and really, even if it's your backup, that's totally fine, that's reasonable, but figure out how you can articulate it and prove to them that that is still one of your main goals. Even though you can do a big spattering of electives, that's totally reasonable. But just have a good case to kind of justify or show your interest in family medicine, as opposed to, oh, I totally want to be a family doctor. I have done one elective in 14 weeks of gen surge. That's not very convincing. So if family really is something that it's, a second choice, but it's still a really strong choice for you, then really prove or show that to them. That's it. I think that I didn't do what Kyle did about coming up with those main things that you want programs to know, but I think that's a great idea. I wish I did that.
So feel free to ask us questions now. Anything at all? What are you guys worried about or excited about?
Yeah. The social stuff that's done evenings after the interview, very important, not important. I'm trying to make flights work, and if every interview is 2 days, it's hard to.
It depends on, like for family programs, they're so big, I don't know if it would make a big difference, but like for anesthesia, like small programs, I imagine it's big, right?
So most of the smaller programs will interview, so everyone goes as a clump across the country, and it was honestly the most fun I had on the tour was the social. We went west to east, so in Vancouver it was awkward and silent. And by the time you reached Ontario, you were trying to drink as much as possible and have as much fun as possible. So. And to the point we got to Halifax and people missed their flights to Nova Scotia or to Newfoundland because they were so hungry. So that's kind of the progression. So you meet a lot of these people on the tour. It's it's a good social event. It's also good for networking in the future. I still talk to people I met on the tour and got to know from who matched other cities. So when you go to conferences and whatnot, it's very good to have a friendly face you remember from 2-3 years ago and catch up, and professionally going forward, there's always someone you can kind of call in Ontario, Vancouver, Alberta, et cetera, et cetera.
Right. I'm thinking more when it comes to them picking residents. Is anyone thinking about that aspect, or you think they don't care?
I think it's more for your benefit.
Yeah.
I think they've kind of the paperwork has been done, and it's not really going to make much of an effect on their decision. But it gives you an opportunity to then meet the residents that you're going to be working with. Yeah. And so I think that you get that out of those situations.
If your friends tell you you're a bad drunk, I think it could be detrimental. If you actually made a fool of yourself, absolutely they would cut you out in a second based on that, right? So if you think that you drink well and your friends tell you otherwise, listen to your friends and do not drink like that on your CaRMs tour, because that actually could hurt you.
Even though it's open bar.
Yeah. So caution.
You're the worst open
If you're good drunk, take advantage.
Open bar and all you can drink are two different things.
Yeah, I don't think that any program's going to be selecting their applicants based on the social. Yeah. But they might cut you because of it. That's very true. Yeah.
So I interviewed at Dal first because they had this early interview thing and it worked out better timing wise for me. It was definitely my worst and least polished interview. Of course, your last interview, they're like, know it cold, it's no big deal. And that was the program I didn't want to apply to anyways. But if you can, I mean, it's not a big deal if your favorite program is first, but if you can make it second or third, then you at least feel less nervous. So that's helpful. But if you can't swing it, it's fine. Sharon?
Can any of you comment on when students are having an interview and it's not necessarily their first choice, so it's their parallel outline, and yes, they want to do it, but how do they answer those questions if it kind of stands out in their application that it may not be their first choice?
So when I was thinking about peds versus family, so I had totally converted to family, but in thinking about peds, I kind of went back to, okay, why initially did I want to do this? And kind of put myself back in my previous shoes of what was it about this that I really did love, and then I roll with that. So if you're thinking of family being your backup, go through all of those. Why are you even ranking it in the first place? And think of all those pros, and you just have to commit to it and just think about it for a little while on its own and exclude the other thing. Like, if I was a family doctor or whatever your backup is, what is it that I would love about it? And kind of convince yourself if you have to, or just if you don't really have to convince yourself, then kind of roll with it and get into that mindset and forget about the other one temporarily.
Yeah, I certainly did that. Like, I was still kind of between family medicine and obs-gyn when I went through CaRMs, but when I did my family medicine interviews, I focused a lot on the things about family that I really enjoyed, and those were things like sexual health and women's health, and I tried to avoid talking about the things about family medicine that I don't enjoy. And like sometimes questions came up about it, and I was just very honest about it, because I think it takes a very mature mind to think about the things in a program that you won't like, and to be able to talk about them and how you'll deal with them when they come up, because they do.
To say there's nothing bad about a field is a complete lie. Yeah. There's always something bad, right? Even in the things you love. There's things about family that I don't like, so it's fine.
Saskatchewan. Saskatchewan.
But there's like 16 hours to figure out, what school's like. If you want to go there, do you have any tips on how to figure out which best to best assess the program?
Like, I think talking to the residents is an awesome way to do that. It's a little bit tricky because I found that sometimes they exaggerate about how good their program is, just because they're kind of in the spotlight. But they will give you a good sense of like what they like about their program, what they don't like about their program. And usually they have someone like touring you around, and that's a really good person to ask.
Yeah. Social too sometimes is a good chance to like see like how many residents come out, like what their relationship with each other is, how much they're interacting with you, and how interested they are in you. I found you get a really good sense of like the community of residents at the socials.
And feel free to ask during your interview itself. They'll ask you, do you have any questions for us? So feel free to ask them about the city and whatnot, because someone gave me advice when I was going through, and they said your interview is almost as much of an interview, you interviewing them, as them interviewing you. So feel free to ask the questions that you want to know the answers to. It shows that you've done enough research about said school and said city to have intelligent questions about their program. And so if you ask those kind of poignant questions that have hit on topics that have been addressed in the past, they're going to know that this guy's well read up, he knows what he's talking about, and he'd be a good addition to our program. at the same time, you can get as much information as you can in the 16 hours by asking the staff, asking the residents. And yeah, they're happy to, when you guys come on your tours through the interviews, we're happy to talk as much about the programs we can and try to sell it, but also be honest. We don't want to lie to you and have you come here and you hate us because we lied to you, right? So, but feel free to ask tons of questions during your interview, at the social and whatnot.
Especially things that pertain to your interests. So if you're interested in biking or hiking or whatever, ask them about like what's available in that community for that type of thing, because you get a good sense of what city fits for you if you actually see the city a little bit. And if you don't get a chance, then it's good to ask.
Yeah, because you're right. Sometimes you're only in a city for like 20 hours, and it's hard to figure it out. I did a lot of like reading up on cities specifically, like kind of like I'm into sports, so I like would check to see like what kind of sports leagues each city had, and then it was actually pretty good because in most interviews you get asked like, why this city? Why do you want to come here? I'm like, oh well, I was reading about this league, and like there's these biking trails that I really like, and all these things, and then I could ask them like, so I know about all these things, but what else is there? Like, what haven't I found out about the city?
Even for the program specifics, and you can email any of the residents across the country that are in their later year and say, hey, I really don't know that much about the program. I try to do an elective, but I only have so much elective time. What are the strengths? What are the weaknesses? And have that conversation with the senior residents, have that conversation with the new junior residents that are there. You'll get two different perspectives on those questions.
And you can actually use it somewhat strategically during your interview to insert something interesting about yourself. Say, so I'm really interested in soccer, any soccer leagues in town. You can bring up the fact that you love to play something, or do something, and it'll allow you to talk a bit about yourself while asking them a question. It's kind of a roundabout way of talking about yourself more than you're supposed to. If you want to, that's all.
In your guys' experience, what was the balance between questions about you as a candidate and clinical scenarios? Like, were you asked much medical knowledge?
Not for family.
Okay.
For internal medicine, we had one question. I think it was only really a Dow, where they asked us. They did give a specific topic that they wanted us to explain how we would teach about that topic. So some people approached it as that they had to teach the interviewers about that topic, but then other people just approached it to what their approach to teaching that topic would be, which is kind of more what I did instead of like teaching them something. And I think that's more what they're looking for. It's not how much you know about something, it's what your philosophy on teaching was. And so I don't think they were really getting at knowledge. I think I had one other question that was knowledge based at another interview, but it was similar to that, where there was not like one set answer. It was more like ethics type question. So it wasn't necessarily like medical knowledge. It was like how you would react in this situation. So it's more common sense. You wouldn't really mess it up, I don't think. Actually.
The it is the CFMS, right, where students write in.
Yeah.
That site is invaluable because people will actually anonymously write about the specific school and the questions they were asked for each specialty. And it is very similar. Yeah. So go through those, because then there'll be some random questions that you're like, oh, I might have been able to answer it, but it's nicer when you can see it ahead of time if it's a bit of a kind of off the path kind of question. So that really is where you guys should go, and you'll probably get, what would you say, like 60 to 70% of the questions that you'll be asked are on there.
So in my experience and through talking to some of my friends, I think some of the more competitive specialties have some more like technical skills or medicine related questions. Like plastics, I've heard of having like, drug dermatomes or innovations or things like that.
Yeah, basically.
I was going, there were a few places that had like show us your lap skills or close this plastic belly or something like that. Like it was kind of intense. But then other places had medical type questions that were more related to seeing how you think or how you approach questions. So my family medicine interview in Saskatchewan was kind of like that. It was a case presentation, but they really just wanted to see how you work through it, and they didn't really care what answer you came up with. So I think it's good to remember that, like, as a clerk, they don't really expect your medical knowledge to be up here. They just want to see how you think, because that's more important to how they can train you.
Yeah, I would say the same thing. My split was like 90-10, and the 10%, it was throwing you in a scenario where you clearly are uncomfortable, clearly have no idea what's going on, and it's more or less to see your reaction to, oh, as the patient is dying in front of you, what do you do? It's not like you have to manage someone's coding. It's more or less you have to show that you're not going to freak out, just be calm and
Just pass out.
yeah. And there was a technical station, I believe, at the general surgery interview with Dal, like in recent years, since I've been a resident. But I think it's more or less to see how you approach this task, and not necessarily expect you to complete it. I don't think anyone actually completed it. I think it was more or less just a task of your dexterity, just to see what's going through your mind, what you're thinking about through this. But either that or as a placeholder during the multiple mini interviews. But yeah.
I think you're right. The more competitive ones are more knowledge based.
Yeah.
Favorite one I've heard is the neurosurgery, where they put a piece of rubber tubing down and it's tie a one-handed knot with your non-dominant hand without moving the tubing. That was the interview question. And but again, it's the same thing.
That's making me nervous.
Right? Yeah,
no.
Exactly.
It's just to make sure that you're not going to panic and just get up and walk out of the room, kind of a thing. But I think every program, every specialty has its own sort of unique personality to it. I mean, you're going to find that across the country. Like, my experience with it was some of the smaller radiology programs were just almost exactly like this, casual, open conversations, and not really much of an interview. And then I had friends that went to Montreal, and they walk in, and it's put up 2 plain films, and it's, okay, what's your main finding that you see, and what's your best differential? So it really depends on where you are.
And so just another thing kind of along the same lines, I found in a lot of my interviews, they were like 80% kind of regular expected questions, and then every program seemed to have like a curveball. And when you get those ones, don't panic, just do the best you can. Like, there's some really odd questions that they throw at you, and I think like every year they try and like up the last year's really odd question. But just like take your time, be calm through it, laugh it off, like
Most programs will say, name a time when you showed blank skill. Like, you'll need to go through and have a bunch of events that you can show that you've displayed whatever good judgment or professionalism, where you made a mistake and you had to correct that mistake. I think I was asked about
Conflict resolution.
all of that stuff. Yeah.
Leadership, good patient communication.
Yeah.
Sometimes I got asked about like poor patient outcomes and how you dealt with it, or how you should have dealt with it. Times that you showed compassion is a good one.
It's self-awareness. Do you recognize when you've made mistakes and things like that? Does anybody here have kids? One, couple? So I have one child, and when I was doing it, I really looked at, this really basically applies to you two guys, just a quick note, or anybody who's planning on having children, look at the programs and see how much time you have to go away. A lot of the programs you have to go away, and they almost would never kind of shift that for you. Some programs are actually extremely flexible. So if you already have kids going in, it's really easy to ask those questions, because it's not like saying, oh, I plan on getting pregnant. But you can say, I already have kids. I want to know. You can certainly tell them you're planning on getting pregnant. I don't think they can discriminate overtly. But if you already have kids, then it's easy to just say, listen, I have children. What will happen if I have to go away? So it's nice to be upfront, knowing ahead of time.
They're not supposed to ask.
They can't ask.
They're not allowed to ask, but you can bring it up.
So I asked programs saying, I already have a child. What happens when I have to go away? So
you guys probably know like about questions that they can't ask. Like, they can't ask what your rank is going to be. They can't ask about kids. They can't ask about sexuality or religion.
Or relationship status.
And if they ask those questions, you just like talk to CaRMs, and they deal with it somehow magically.
Well, you're not supposed to answer. Some of the questions is, I don't know if they're overanalyzing it or not, but you've heard people ask questions like, oh, what, are you married? Are you single? Are you planning to get married and whatnot? And had kids, because that may, and you're
Totally.
and maybe you're supposed to say,
Yeah.
I'm not to answer that question.
Yeah.
It's inappropriate questions.
Yeah.
I honestly don't know.
No, sometimes you can use it in your questioning. Maybe it's reasonable to bring up when they say, why do you want to be here? You say, well, actually, my partner, has a job transfer to this city, or my partner's family lives here. Like, sometimes it's absolutely appropriate. It's not like you can't bring it up, right? So sometimes that's your bargaining chip. This is where my partner wants to be. So then they say, oh, great, we've convinced their whole group to go. Their whole group. Whatever.
The partner dictates
Their
where
posse.
you go.
Oh, totally. Yeah.
In most situations.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So you can tell them this is where I want to be, because I definitely did that. It was like, this is my number one.
Yeah.
But they can't
unless
ask you. But if you're like serious,
You can say that to every single program if you want.
Oh, yeah.
Along that same vein, any thoughts on divulging couples match or not?
Oh, I don't know. I didn't double match anybody.
Didn't, but I know people that did say that in the interview. I know people that couples matched to the same program at the same school. That obviously the program was aware that they were there.
I've heard sometimes it can be tricky though, because sometimes it can freak programs out. Like if they rank you really high, I don't know though. Like if you were applying to something that was super specialized and they ranked you higher than, I don't know.
The weird thing is, I don't know if it really affects the algorithm, right? No. Of how they rank you, because your partner is either going to match there or not, and it shouldn't affect how they rank you. Yeah.
But it is weighted in your favor. That's one thing you have to keep in mind throughout all this. That it's not the programs picking. It's not like a regular job interview where they just pick the best candidate that they think. This is all weighted in your favor more so than the program's favor. Slightly.
One thing I will say, so last year was a really bad match year for Dal, and when people talk about rank, so when you're doing the first round and you're putting down programs, and absolutely whatever you put down, you could be, in a binding contract to go to that place. So don't put something that you really would hate, but keep in mind that you're still, the question is, would you rather do that than be in a second round match, right? So if you go to a second round match, now you're competing against the world, and what are you applying to? If you're applying to internal, any surgeries, you may be, like I think Kingston, there was 600 applicants or like 1,000 applicants for one spot, and you're competing against doctors in other countries who've been working for years. So ask yourself, do I really want to live in this city and do this program? Yes, no, or would I rather do that than be in a second round or, picking up whatever's left?
Or defer for a year.
Yeah, like you really have to think pretty critically when you're doing that.
About ranking as well, some of my friends did this really weird thing that I tried to talk them out of, where they
Sounds like a terrible plan.
Yeah,
Good sell.
Yeah.
They were talking about not ranking programs high because they felt like their interviews went poorly, and they're like, oh well, this program won't rank me well, so I'm going to put them down on my list because they don't have a very good chance of matching there. Well, that doesn't make any sense because it has no influence on anything, right? So if you want to go to a place, rank it high. Yeah, don't think about how your interview went. Just think about how much you want to go there and do that.
That should be the only thing that really focuses is this where I want to be, and is this what the program I want to do? That's it.
Yeah. And if you can't see yourself in a place at all, don't rank it because you could end up there.
Oh yeah.
You're just gonna have Kyle's voice going through your head when you're being like, oh, maybe I shouldn't rank this very high because I did poorly, and Kyle's gonna be like, that's a stupid decision.
Just rank it.
Stupid decision.
Just do it.
Just going in your head over and over.
Like even if it was your worst interview and you really want to go there, put it number 1. Do it.
Yeah.
Good match. Who knows?
Follow up to the questions you guys are talking about personal, and how much you're supposed to discuss your personal life or whatever. So I've heard from some people to say not wear your engagement ring or your wedding band, whatever.
Stupid.
Okay. All right. I'm just wondering. Yeah. So do you guys?
Fan line, anyways, they'll know.
So do you guys you think it is advantageous to talk about why you want to go to a program if your fiance or husband or kids or whatever are local?
I always say that you don't want a program to pick you on false pretenses. They should want to pick you for who you are, and you don't want to go to a program who thinks that you're not who you are. So, if you don't want to tell them that you have a fiance or a husband or whatever, don't tell them. But like, don't go actively lying
Hiding
about
it,
it.
okay.
Hiding, yeah.
Okay, and I've heard mixed reviews, and I kind of thought it was silly, but I figured I'd ask.
You can really suss out programs that fit you well by doing that. So anytime I brought up having a child, I really found the programs that were like, oh, no problem, we have plenty of kids with, or plenty of people with children, and you figure out how they accommodate whatever it is that you're talking about, right? So like, oh yeah, we have lots of, I don't know, couples, like big, family gatherings, and we're very inclusive, and it'll come out, and so it'll help you pick that program.
Thanks.
Yeah.
So you guys talked a little bit about the social aspect of the program. So you were talking about bike trails and joining sports teams and stuff. I was wondering if you guys could maybe comment, maybe not specifically on the school, but some of the maybe weaknesses in the programs that you were maybe looking for or discovered, and that was sort of something that you guys considered.
So for me, like I was going into a surgical specialty, so obviously things like hands-on time, number of residents. I usually always asked a question about resident-staff relationships, like what do you guys do for fun? Do you hang out with your staff? How do you encourage wellness in your program? Like, are there any wellness activities that you do on a regular basis? And lots of programs were really honest and were like, nope, we don't really hang out. We don't really do anything. Like, whoa, like that's something that I really looked for.
For family in particular, I guess this may apply for internal too, because it's so broad and you could want to be a family doctor in, so many different areas. I asked a lot about kind of flexibility of programs and, what if I want more of a rural obs experience or more of an urban obs experience or whatever, do you tailor your program or is it pretty rigid? And figuring that out is pretty useful. If it's a family style program, because they're so much more broad. I don't know for internal, I guess you would be asking if you get lots of specialty exposure. I don't know.
Sort of, yeah. I guess some people are wondering, like, how much MTU time do you have in your first year? Do you get to do ICU as a first year versus, or do you only get to do it as a second year?
Right.
Things like that. But yeah, it was more of a general, like, resident happiness I felt like that I was looking for. Because you think that all the schools are going to look really similar, but even being there for like 24 hours, you get a pretty good feel of how happy people are. Like some places surprised me. Like when I went to Calgary, I had never been there, and I was just like, oh, this won't be good. Anyway, the program was great, and the residents were really welcoming, and the program director was like loved Maritimers, and it was awesome. And then when I went to Montreal, like I found like the residents there, they just weren't happy and didn't feel well supported, and even in terms of their contract and stuff, like it just was like a downer atmosphere. So that was kind of more important because I felt like overall, like whether I did ICU my first years, it really doesn't matter for my overall training. I guess some people looked at, because for internal you have to match again. If there's something that you're thinking that you really want to do later, subspecialty wise, it might be worthwhile looking, does that school have what you want to do, and does it matter if they don't? Because certain schools don't have all subspecialty programs. Like for example, Dal doesn't have like an allergy program.
I thought you just said an allergy program. What the hell is that?
Allergy. So if you were really interested in that, or know you have some area of interest already, then you might look to the future and think about what school would be good for that, because you might have a leg up if you're already at that institution.
One other thing, I kind of tried to compare programs. Everybody says you'll get a good training wherever you go, which is pretty true, but there'll be little differences between programs. So one of the things I did is I asked about like very specific skills that you're going to gain through your residency, and asked kind of at what level do you expect your residents to do X. So for me it was like, at what residency level would you expect someone to do a C-section unassisted, or I don't know, like a lap hist, or those kind of things. And it gave me a very good idea of kind of the hands-on time that the residents were getting because there's some places like, oh, like you won't do a lab hist until you're in your 4th year. And in some places there's like, oh, you'll do it by the beginning of your 2nd year. So it's a huge difference, right? And so depending what you're looking for in your residency, you can ask kind of about specific skills that you want to get.
I was really surprised by how much I was influenced by that initial presentation from programs.
Yeah,
Like
absolutely.
that would, I don't know if anybody's been to Brampton, and I'm sorry if you're from Brampton, but it might be the arsehole of the country. I wanted to go to Brampton at the end of because Brampton is out of McMaster. So McMaster it was the most inspirational talk ever. Everybody who talked, I was like, I will do anything you tell me. And they were so good. And at the end of it, I called my husband. I was like, can I put Brampton down? He's like, I hate you so much. And I was like, we could live in Toronto. I'd commute. And it was there. It's amazing how much you will be swayed to programs that you never even considered because it just fits or it just makes sense. Clearly, I'm not in Brampton because Halifax was actually where we wanted to stay. But you'll learn about programs that you've never heard of. Well, this is more applicable actually to family because you find out about their remote sites. So I presume surgery doesn't go to Brampton, but
on the flip side, the community rotations are
that's true.
Very key, and you want to know if you're going to a community or going into a surgical program, you want to know how much community time you do get.
Are there good teachers in those communities?
Talk to the residents about that. I think the residents will be more likely to give up good or bad information about the community settings as opposed to their actual staff at their own hospital. And so they're likely to be a little more honest in that sense. Furthermore, you want to know like how much community time you get because in a big tertiary care center, your operative time, no matter what program you go to, is still decreased compared to going to the community where you're the only one there, and you get a lot of extra time of that. So a good sell with Dal is you do essentially a year in New Brunswick.
Is it really? Wow. Over your 5.
Over your 3 years, you do a year. Well, no, you do 6 months in 3 years.
Okay.
So.
I was just going to say, like with those initial presentations, don't get sucked into them. Like I honestly found that, like, because I found the same thing. Like you watch these presentations, you're like, this place is heaven. Like it's so awesome.
And you
then
realize
like
you're in Brampton.
Then you realize
Brampton's
like,
still kind of
dingy. You gotta dig a little deeper for the dirt, right? Because everywhere is going to try and make themselves look really good, and they're got to be hiding something. Like the fact that they're in Brampton.
There's always a cousin in the attic somewhere.
Yeah.
In Brampton.
If you want to be somewhat objective about it, you just have to figure out what's important to you. If the most important thing to you is, one-on-one staff time, then start a checklist. Okay, who has the most staff per resident?
Yeah.
Who has the most fellows? That's going to be, again, another pool of people competing with you. Is research important to you? Some programs have dedicated research departments. Do you want to work in an academic center down the road, or do you want to work in a community setting? Do they provide the opportunity to show you what practices are like? What's your call like? There are some places for radiology where they go home every single night and they might get 1 or 2 cases. That sounds like bliss, but you got a fair bit of learning on call. There are other places where you feel like killing yourself every night because you just can't keep up with the work. You have to figure out what the staff are like. If they're tyrants and you're terrified to call them at 4 a.m, then that's to one extreme. If you're going to call them for every little thing because they're so approachable, then that's sort of you have to find where the middle ground on everything from like you said, family life, social supports, extracurricular activities, research, call, teaching. Some places have their half day once a week and that's it. Other places have 3 and 4 hours of teaching every day. Some people have just an hour in the morning. So, those are questions that you can ask every single program along their interview at the end. You can, they say, do you have any questions for us? Well, actually, and then start your interview of them with a checklist of things that are important to you. I think it's a fair list.
Yeah, I think just to reiterate, asking about the call is important, especially for different programs, like have you be a senior resident at different levels. So asking like when does your responsibility increase and at what level? Because some people like having more responsibility early on and having the holy shit feeling like early, whereas other people like to be supported longer. And so knowing that about a program can actually help you pick. And also, like you said, kind of more rural places, you usually have more independence, and that fits some personalities really well. But if you're not a person who learns in that way, then that probably isn't the best situation for you. And often people find it anxiety provoking when they get into it, and it's important to think about kind of ahead of time.
You could absolutely love or hate the same specialty depending on what program you're in.
Yeah.
No question.
Kind of a family specific one. But if you're thinking about putting a +1 on your family, like a CCFP EM or something, would you divulge that, or would you not get specific about it?
It wouldn't affect, like, I wouldn't bring it up because it wouldn't be applicable.
Okay.
Do you know what I mean? No, I don't think so. And I mean, it would be good for you to know, okay, do I want to apply to a +1 emerge, +1 OBS? Because maybe you want to pick a school that already has it, so they know you. So when you apply back, it helps when you're a familiar face, right? Then they know if they like you or not. And but yeah, I don't think it would necessarily help in your. That would be kind of like applying to med school, saying I want to be a general surgeon. Like they would say, meh. Yeah, especially if it changes, right? Yeah, because it may change over those 2 years.
Yeah, I don't think it helps or hurts really. Like again, I think it's best to be honest. If that's your goal in life to do that, then I think it's fair to share it with them, and they probably won't hold it against you. And it doesn't take away from your desire to be a family doctor.
I guess that's my wonder. Are they trying to train people that are going to carry a practice, or do they not care what you do thereafter?
They need everybody.
That is true. You know what though? The Dal program, if you apply to Dal, they are. You know what? I actually wouldn't maybe mention the emerge thing.
The emerge thing is a bit of a hot topic.
I wouldn't have mentioned the emerge thing at Dal, because depending on which staff is interviewing you, some don't actually like the fact that family docs come in to do emerge only. So I would actually be careful.
Because I've heard that advice. So
I say opt out of it. I don't know about other schools, but Dal, I would say don't.
I've had friends of mine who've done the +1, and they said specifically that they felt like an outsider in the program.
Interesting.
Going through the family program, like you're only there just to get to the emerge part.
Yeah.
So they kind of felt a little bit like.
But by the staff, you mean?
Didn't really get family affair shake almost like kind of thing. They went through it, but it was just kind of this thing they did.
Yeah.
To get to the 1 year emerge.
Right.
And they felt like they were kind of like the outsider.
Yeah.
Sort of. So I don't know.
Yeah, the residents in our cohort who want to do emerge, I feel like we all are very collegial and the same. I don't care that they want to do emerge and I want to do OBS, but Dal is somewhat of a more OBS. It's OBS heavy in that in second year you're doing call for OBS, and so that's a plus if you like OBS and a downside if you don't. So if I went in saying I really like OBS and that's a bonus to their program, so I say, I like that, I get more experience. So for me, I brought up OBS. But I would say no.
Yeah, it must be a tricky thing.
How can I not do OBS?
A tricky thing to find out, like which programs are amenable to it or not. Like in Saskatchewan, especially the rural programs in Saskatchewan, they would love it because in northern Saskatchewan, you're almost expected to do emerge as a family doctor. So they love people who have an interest in doing the extra training. So.
Nuances.
It's probably program specific.
I think it goes back to what you said before. You really have to know the feel of the program. You know, I think a fair question to ask any resident, any program is, can you just go through like roughly what the highlights are of the 3 years, 4 years? Just what's the program set up like? You can answer that question in about 2 minutes. I wouldn't be offended if anyone in the country sent me that email and said, hey, I just saw your email on the website. I wonder if you can answer the question for me.
Yeah. Well, the website has it too.
Yeah.
Talking about highlights of the program, this just sparked something in my mind. Asking people about like elective opportunities is also a good idea, and things like opportunities to do international health. So if you have an interest in it, it's always a good thing to ask about. I found some programs. So I have an interest in global health, and I asked every program I went to, and every school like tried to sound like they had an interest in it, they're like, oh, totally. But then some schools were very, very specific, like, yeah, we have these connections in these countries, and we send people all the time, and that's how you kind of tease it out. Specificity.
Goes back to you interviewing the program.
Yeah.
Any other questions?
As a side note, if anybody is pregnant or plans on getting pregnant or is wondering what it's like to have children while in residency, feel free to email me. We don't have to talk about it now, but.
Anyone interviewed a program where you had to do a presentation?
No. No, because they would. No.
Weird.
20-minute talk on something.
That would be
That's
terrible.
a lot of presentations.
I had some programs where you had to teach something, and like.
Oh God. No, to be honest, nobody wants to listen to that. There's like hundreds of people, right? So terrible.
Maybe for a keen path or.
They would do that.
The only thing would be to get you to teach something.
Yeah.
I think you might get out of that.
And for that teaching thing, so I also, same friend, kind of made bad decisions with this teaching thing. The night before interview started, he was like trying to learn how to do origami.
Oh God, no.
No, like just do. No. And I asked him why. He's like, I gotta teach them something. Like I gotta know what to do. And I was like, well, don't do that. You're never gonna remember it in an interview.
If you're learning it now, you'll be a terrible teacher tomorrow.
And honestly, I didn't know that they asked those kind of questions in interviews. And so when it came up, I was a little bit taken aback. But then I just taught them about ultimate frisbee. I was like, these are the rules for ultimate frisbee.
And oh my God, don't teach them about something medical. Pick something fun.
Yeah, absolutely.
Like when they're asking you to teach them, they don't actually mean to teach them something like medical, right? They want to be creative, come up with something great, entertaining.
My car won't start. Please tell me how to fix it.
Yeah.
What?
My car won't start. Please tell me how to
Very
fix
useful.
it.
Yeah. When the residents interview you, or well, at least when we interview the medical students, it's more or less, can we work with you for the next 5 years? Are you someone who's going to be, or someone we're going to have fun hanging out with and feel collegial with, and we can chat about whatever with, and you're,
While sleep deprived.
Yeah, while sleep deprived and grumpy and hangry.
Yeah. Angry. I am currently angry. Yeah.
Yeah, one last thing I would say, like back to my list of like having the important things to tell about yourself. Honestly, be yourself in a program. Let them know who you are.
Don't lie.
Yeah, don't pretend to be anybody because, like I said before, you want to match to a program who wants you for who you are, because you'll be happy that way.
If you want to prep for one question that's going to come up every single time that you want to, it's hard trying to think of a good answer for it, and one that's not going to sound like you rambling on is, so tell us about yourself.
That's how every interview.
That's the start. All of them. So you want a nice, concise 5-6 minute answer to that. That took a week to try and come up with that on paper.
Time yourself.
Yeah.
We all ramble.
Coming up with the examples of the scenarios, I found I had to do that ahead of time, and it was actually hard to remember. And I had to brainstorm with classmates to be like, what happened to me? It was really hard to think of it on the spot. And so the CFMS website triggers you on what you should do.
Can I share a short story?
Yeah.
My most embarrassing moment in an OBS interview was, tell us about your first delivery. And I completely blanked, just had no idea. I had to make it up possible.
They're all kind of similar. You probably got splashed. Yeah. At the Dow interview for family, they had asked me one of those questions, tell us a time when you did this. And I told them that time. And then the next question was still kind of similar. And I was like, no, but that was the time I was talking about that one. So you need kind of multiple
get a couple
stories.
examples.
That was too similar. Yeah. So I used up my example. So then you can,
And it's fun too, because when they ask you a question and you're like, okay, which one of my awesome answers can I manipulate that answer to?
Just a question about specific to family. So you guys are talking about 5 or 6 minutes that tell me about yourself sort of thing. How long are interviews? Are they half an hour?
They'll tell
an hour?
Every program is different.
Mine? Yeah, the Dow one was for family. It depended, actually. Depending on who interviewed, mine was probably 15, 20 minutes. But then somebody came out after like 10. They're like, oh God, what happened? So it just depends on how much interaction you get. But I'd say 20. There's a really...
We had a bunch of 5s and a bunch of 20s and a bunch of 10s.
Okay.
See, ours always run about an hour or so on average. Oh. It's like 3 groups of people that have 15-minute conversations.
Yeah, right. And presumably you can get our email from Sharon.
Yeah.
If you...
Yep, absolutely.
You can release our information. I know.
One other question that I get often is how receptive are programs when you're invited for an interview if there's a conflict? How receptive are they when you write and say, look, I'm trying to make the schedule work?
I never tried.
Have you encountered that?
You know,
Yeah.
pretty flexible from our programs, I would say, like, because radiology is usually 2 days across the country, so it's either day 1 or day 2.
Oh.
It's, you know, that's really it. But again, it's the same thing as I think surgery, where everyone is timed fairly well, so there's not usually overlap. There are a few scenarios where, you know, day 2 of one program is day 1 of another, so sometimes then they'll let you juggle things around. But they were usually pretty flexible about that.
So when you're crossing programs, it gets awkward, right?
Yeah.
Because the programs coordinate across the country, but all of the separate programs don't coordinate.
No. So if you're applying for 2 different programs, I had to fly back and forth a few times, but and I missed a social or 2 as a result.
Yeah.
But if you're applying to one program, they talk to each other. They make sure that everybody can travel more or less as a group.
And you can Skype sometimes. Kyle, I don't know. I'm going to totally throw Kyle under the bus right now. Kyle Jewers and
Ravi, another one.
What's that?
Ravi, another one.
Oh, really?
Ravi, yeah.
And Kyle got stuck in Newfoundland and couldn't interview in Halifax and interviewed in his boxers with a dress shirt on and Skyped. So you can Skype sometimes, especially with, I mean, you're traveling in the middle of January. It's horrendous weather. And so people get stuck all the time. And so a lot of programs Skype.
For medicine, they have this crazy thing that on like January 8th it opens and you go in and it's like this big computer thing and you have to like pick it, and then once you pick it, it is kind of hard to change it. So it's good to look at it. The schedule is pretty much available before that document comes out, so to try to plan your like route before that comes in, because as soon as people start clicking them off, then those are gone. So you want to be like, try to not be in clinic until 5 o'clock that day or something. So
it is actually competitive.
Yeah, and then if it's gone, if the spots are gone, then there's not a whole lot that they can do for you. And especially if you're trying to apply to a bunch of programs. Yeah. Or if you accidentally click the wrong thing and then have to call them, because that happened to me. So it is annoying when you're looking at so many different interviews. So just look at the dates before and try to start planning before, because it all comes out in one day.
When did that come out that day?
Yeah.
It was late. It was like
January. Like the time of the day.
Yeah, so that was on CaRMs before, I'm pretty sure, and it wasn't 100% accurate either. But they do put on like what their interview days are going to be, usually on CaRMs. So it should be on CaRMs now, that part.
You will be paying as much for that flight as you can because you're booking like 3 weeks ahead.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, it's really
it's not cheap.
I would say go to all the interviews you get. I know it's a bit of a hit on the bank, but I've found that even though I became less and less enthralled with internal as my year went on, I still learned a lot from going to the internal interview. Yeah. It allowed me to practice whatever situation, scenario, question I was going to do in my general surgery stuff. Some of it is still translatable. And yes, it's more expensive, but it's a one-time expense. And I learned a lot about like myself, the city, and whatnot, just by going to interviews where I wasn't too keen on going to that program or that city. But hey, I went in with the whole, I'm going to give it my best shot, and I learned a lot from it.
Sorry, Alison, can I just ask you a question about that system of booking interviews?
Yeah.
Someone had mentioned to me that if you log in early, you can see some of your interviews that are there before the day. Did you hear anything about that, or was that your experience? So all the interviews for internal come out on January 6th.
Yes.
And one of the residents I was talking to said that she was able to log in a few days before and could see some of the interviews in the system, even though the bulk of them came out on the 6th, or that whatever day hers was.
Actually, now that you say that, there were a couple programs that actually emailed like the day before or 2 days before the actual official date, which they're not supposed to do. So you could probably, I don't think you could actually go in and book though until
You
the 6th.
just see the dates. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
So like you knew that you got an interview at that place, so you could start thinking like, which day would I want to go there? But you couldn't actually book it in the system. But an internal was not like coast to coast. Like it was like, here are the places. Try to figure it out.
Sounds about right.
Yeah. Like so, I actually could not get to I could not physically get to every interview that I was offered, but I had applied to a bunch, so I just started like, I weeded a few out, but.
And like, are you gonna rent a car if you're in Ontario? Because a lot of the Ontario schools are closed, right? Are you renting a car? What's that? Carpooling. And if you're going between, like Toronto and Kingston and Ottawa, is it worth the flight? Because maybe maybe weather is bad and you won't get a flight, but you could drive.
Take a train.
Train is definitely the safest. The 401 was shut down right after I arrived in Kingston. It was so dangerous. And like rental cars are horrendous. They never give you snow tires. On like shitty all seasons and a Ford Focus.
Slicks.
Behind a bunch of semi trucks. It's really scary.
I drove through that blizzard in Western that knocked off like 50 vehicles off the road in one day. That was my interview.
Be safe though, by the way.
Yeah. Emily Wilson, who's a second-year resident now in Ontario, she was one of the first of 30 cars in a pileup on the 401 where there was 200 cars. Yeah. She showed up to her interview. They wouldn't let her back in her car. Her mom had to show up with her grade 9 clothes with a black eye. And nobody asked her. She's like, who is not asking me about this huge black eye on my face? Yeah. Are we getting shut down? Sure.
My microphone's not working, so I thought I'd come back there. Can each of you comment on how many programs you applied to and how many interviews you got?
I applied to 8. Yeah. One peds and 7 family, and I had 8 interviews.
Yeah, I was 13 for 13. I think I did like 8 OBS programs and 6 family programs.
I don't remember. It's been a long time. I think I did 6 interviews for general surgery and at least for sure 2 interviews for medicine. I applied all across the country.
Yeah, I pretty much applied to everywhere except for French schools. I think it worked out to be like 12 or 13, and I got interviews at all of them except for 2. So then it took me down to like 11. But then I ended up cutting out like Winnipeg, Saskatchewan, BC, the places that I couldn't get to. So I ended up kind of cutting it down, which is probably not the best strategy if you can make it work. Try to make it work. But I was kind of more paranoid, so I was like apply, and then I at least had options. So it was 2 places that I had not done electives at that I didn't get it. I think it was Toronto and Queens, maybe?
I think I did 12 applications, so all the English-speaking radiology programs and 6 interviews. Went to all of them.
I was going to make a few comments just about traveling. Air Canada and WestJet usually have deals on at this time of year for students. You can buy like a group of one-way flights. I don't know if they've
The CaRMs had a flight deal as well with WestJet, but apparently if you bought during seat sales, it's still cheaper than because the WestJet CFMS deal was only on regular price fares, so it didn't really factor in at all. It wasn't really helpful.
On your flights, try not to stress. There's lots of delays, just like traveling all the time. There's nothing you can do about it. Don't freak out. Programs will like accommodate you for travel interruptions. Carry on.
Just have clothes.
Yeah, just carry on.
Girls, that includes you. If you're at a hotel, they'll probably have a hairdryer. If you're at a friend's house, they probably have a hairdryer. Bring what you need. Or at least, if you are putting something in a checked, you just shouldn't, but if you have to bring checked, then your carry-on still has all your most important things. At least one suit or whatever you're wearing, makeup if required, and whatever else is necessary to get ready that morning. What's that? Did you bring yours too?
Oh yeah, you got my makeup.
Maybe you guys know this. I didn't. My friends all did it. I guess like upgrading your seats on flights to like first class.
What?
Like 30 extra bucks.
No.
Yeah, I've looked every time. I've never found out. But
What?
Apparently my friends all did
No
it.
way.
No, how?
If you have long layovers.
From the hour from the flight from Toronto to like Kingston, there was like $30 for an upgrade.
If you have long layovers,
No,
VIP rooms at the airport are awesome. And like you can get like free vouchers to them.
Ooh,
they're spectacular.
Really?
Yeah, there's like showers and food and TV and beer and
Thanks for traveling with your friends.
Yeah. If you're traveling with or actually just fly with Porter, they're so good. And then if you really want to drink for free, go to town, and then you have access to their lounge.
And don't stress about what you wear. Lots of people always ask about that.
Who cares?
But like,
Don't be disheveled.
yeah,
don't look
nice,
ridiculous.
but don't stress about it.
Yeah. Iron your clothes. My God, people.
Yeah. Especially at the end of the interviews.
Oh yeah.
After you've been traveling for a month, your clothes are wrinkly.
I will judge you if your clothes are not ironed. I don't care what it is, but you can't come in a wrinkly mess. It's not right.
I would say don't try to stand out. Just try to.
Yeah. Oh, no way, stand out. Last year, everybody was like gray, everything, and I had like
fuchsia.
I had
I hope
fuchsia.
so.
Yeah.
Yes.
I had like blue wool
Good for
pants
Obs.
and a bright jacket. And
What?
Doug Chu.
Yeah.
Oh, Doug.
I think if it's you, if that's how you dress.
Exactly.
Yeah,
Yeah,
exactly.
just dress
Be yourself.
Yeah. Doug probably added sparkles to his hair or something.
He looked great.
He always.
I thought he was one of the residents.
Oh yeah.
So
After
common.
that day, January 6th, when all the rules offers come out, do they go kind of like that?
It's pretty fast.
hours.
I had some people that like smartly, I think, like took the morning off. But I was like, I forget what I was doing, but I was on a rotation where I didn't have that exact flexibility. So I was like going to the bathroom being like, I gotta get this done. Because by the end of the day, it was like the difference between an 8 o'clock interview and a 5 o'clock interview might make the difference of you not being able to go to another interview. So that's why knowing the places you really want to go and looking at the schedule ahead of time so that you can go in and be like, whoop, whoop, and like do it fast. Because I did call a couple places to be like, in order to get to this, and they try to switch you because other people are doing the same thing. They're calling and being like, hey, I need to be able to get to that place now. And they put you on like cancellation lists or whatever, but they can only accommodate like what is on those blocks. There's not like hidden extra spots. So yeah, be ready with a plan.
Does it happen like at 8 o'clock in the morning that they all do it?
Yeah, it was in the morning.
I don't.
What time zone?
Oh yeah. Oh.
What time zone? Everyone BC gets screwed.
I know you guys totally do.
Totally get screwed.
I like being on the Atlantic sometimes for that reason.
Any other questions? Well, I hope you found this helpful. I'd like to thank our 5 residents. It was really informative. It always is every year that we do this. So I really appreciate you coming out this evening and all of you for coming out. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thanks, Jen.
I know.
Is your family still with us?
Oh, yeah.
Where?